day of January 2025. Simon Kasiath is my name, sitting in for the perennial host of this program, Oscar Simoya Musuke. And yes, a beautiful Saturday morning from where we are here in Kampala. The sun is up and shining bright, and the mood is right in the studio. A couple of the gangsters already in the house, and I will take no minute of delay, but allow them introduce themselves in no particular order of importance. I'll start with the man from Chira Municipality, Honorable Ibrahim Semujungana. Good morning and welcome to the program, and Happy New Year. I haven't seen you since this year began.
This is almost a month into
Say
the
that
new
again.
Year. We're almost a month into the new year.
Why?
Good morning, Simon, and good morning to the listeners.
Thank you and most welcome. Yes, and just joining us is another member of parliament, but this time from the Western District of Greater Bushenyi, and let him introduce himself. Honorable Katesh, good morning, welcome to the program, and introduce yourself formally.
Thank you very much. There is no district called Greater Bushenyi. It is the Shema. Shema is part of the Greater Bushenyi of 5 districts. But good morning to see you, my OB, Simon, and the gangsters.
Always my pleasure to have you. And yes, the voice of a lady speaking in the background is none other than Honorable Lydia Wanyotutende. Good morning and welcome to the program, Lydia.
Good morning, Simon, and to our listeners. We've had a very difficult month as the NRM family. Last Sunday, we had a burial of a very senior veteran, Mr. Moses Wanda in Mbale City. He has been an NRM for a long time, veteran, public secretary from Mbale City. We lost Semuju's friend and a friend of so many, Honorable Margaret Babadiri. We laid Margaret to rest I was in Koboko myself. She had been a member of parliament for 25 years, both for disability, then she became a member for Koboko. Then while we were in Koboko, we also lost Honorable Besisira. All these have been members of parliament with Semuju. So we laid Besisira yesterday in Kagadi. And then when we were getting over that, we've lost Margaret Komhanji.
Nakasongola.
Margaret Komhanji was a member of parliament for Nakasongola, but also the chairperson for the Committee on Gender and Social Development. So she passed on in India. We are waiting for the funeral program when the body arrives. So it has not been very good, and I just want to take this opportunity to pay my tribute to the families of our fallen colleagues, but also to the leaders whom they were able to lead. I mean, they were Nainchi because they were leaders in their communities, but also at a national level. And to the NRM family, because we've lost, those are very big leaders in our community and in our party. So I'm here, but with that type of background, we haven't been having a and many others who, of course, who have fallen sick, who have lost relatives. It's not to say that I do not think, but it's because these are close to me, and I thought I should share. Thank you.
From all of us at the Capital Gang, we send our most heartfelt condolences to all those who've lost their loved ones and those who continue to grapple with the vagaries of ill health and the like. But as we say, c'est la vie in French. We have a guest in the studio. His name is John Walugembe. Good morning, welcome to the program, and tell us one or two things.
Good morning, Simon. It's always a pleasure to be here. And I just want to wish all business people, the private sector, but in particular small and medium enterprises, a great 2025.
At what point do I get to know that I am within the small and medium enterprises and not yet one of the big enterprises?
No, if you, according to the policy, if you have an asset turnover that exceeds 360 million a year, we assume that you are moving towards a large enterprise.
Well, sometimes they say dreams are valid, but I think I will restrict myself from dreaming into that area because certainly I'm not about to join that.
But he has come to gang with a very big book. This
Blue
one
in
is how many periods?
No, I just
24 choir.
I not
24 choir plus. I don't know what he has come to take. He has scared us. Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, considering that John has come in from a very big stakes of conversations, let's try to for the moment of just battling the ice, let's just start from outside the borders of Uganda, but looking at what will certainly be a game-changing event in the course of the week that we're just beginning. On Monday, we have the inauguration of the 47th President of the United States of America, who is no stranger to the White House, no stranger to power, but certainly a man that is not devoid of controversy, shaking the hornet's nest, and doing everything in between. As we start the gang this morning, I'll just take it to the top, just asking you, what do you think of a Trump presidency vis-a-vis our, well, internal, or should we say domestic political dispensation, and perhaps even looking at our regional stability in the Great Lakes region? And I'll start with you, Honorable Semuju Uganda.
You see, I think the best way to describe that presidency is some sort of instability.
Mm-hmm. The man hasn't even been sworn in, but he has already cracked a ceasefire deal with one of the most warring factions in the world.
Maybe they actually hurried because they didn't want that ceasefire to happen when he's in office. He has already threatened Canada, threatened China, threatened Mexico, threatened Panama. Even before he takes office, Europe is in a panic. And I think that characterized his presidency. The alliances that the American committed itself, he kept quarreling with them until he left office.
Now he's back.
Climate change. And by the American standards, you wonder whether a country like America can have a person like a Trump as their leader. But they did. You remember, I think, and I suspect COVID played a very big part in undermining his re-election that time, when he was saying now, this sanitizer, which kills COVID, why don't people just take it as medicine? So, but there you are, you have a Trump. I think beginning of the week he's going to be inaugurated, and the instability in the world trade order will begin. The African leaders, including those in Uganda, were very happy with Trump for one single reason. His America First slogan, and maybe belief, relieved them of some pressure that you're not going to have statements against you for overstaying in power, for quarreling with Congo, for at least for those 4 years. Because you have a president who described you in the words he did, so he doesn't care. You can go and kill people in your own backyard, as long as it doesn't affect America, as long as America doesn't spend money on you. So in terms of foreign policy, I think the African leaders, including Museveni, should be very happy that you are going to have someone in White House who will not hold you to any standards. So you can have at least a 4-year holiday as you quarrels with China and other big actors. But Europe and the rest of the key players in trade, in politics, in military, I think the instability begins on the day of inauguration. Then you will see him signing executive orders every day, ordering this, reversing this and that.
Do you share the same sentiment about a Donald Trump presidency coming in at this point in time, Honorable Katesh, from what Honorable Semuju Uganda has just said? But of course, before you come in, I also wish to take the pleasure to welcome a new member of the gang that has just joined us, the Honorable Abdul Katuntu, wise man from the East. Good morning, welcome to the program, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Simon. Glad to see you.
Happy to see you too.
I think I last saw you last year.
And I think you can see that not much has changed in
last
terms
year
of
is
how
about 3 weeks ago.
Katesh.
Well, first of all, I think the world we live in is full of hypocrisy and pretense. And we have seen the global powers sometimes pretending and taking a narrative, and we who are still struggling to develop, at times we are taken to believe that people are being realistic. The difference with Trump, which I do appreciate, is that we know what he will have, who he will be. He will speak. If he doesn't want to come to Africa, he will say he doesn't want to come. He's better off than someone who comes and pretends and wants you to jump, and you are asking, how high do I jump? So
why don't you just mention the name of Obama and then proceed? So
for me, what I expect is that reality is going to hit the world, and everybody perhaps will mind their business. I give an example. We've been going through the struggle of developing our oil and gas industry. And the kind of propaganda and condemnation and opposition we have had, especially from these green activists in Europe. There's a young man there, we have had serious confrontations, even in forums in Belgium. They come and say, the pipeline you are destroying, wildlife, you have made thousands of people jobless, they must stop exploration. Now, and all these things about climate change, pollution, but the biggest polluters are Europeans and Americans, and they know, but they don't want to pay. And what we saw after the Ukraine war started is that Germany went back on some of their commitments, and they started reviving their coal. And so I think that one of the things I appreciate about Trump is that he will mind the business of Americans, their problems, and it gives us space. Because if we have not developed, and you are telling us about pollution, and we are not the biggest contributors of pollution, so you want us to remain very poor. We don't exploit our resources, because for you have already passed that stage. Our energy mix is still a problem. So I expect him to bring that reality. Secondly, is all this craze about transgender. It's, if you love your stuff, why do you want to impose it on the rest of the world?
So you meaning STUFF.
Yeah.
STA.
Yes.
Yes, I think it is STA.
So this whole thing of thinking that my culture must compulsorily become your culture, mind your business. You don't mind, but don't try to impose your
stuff
on the other world. And finally, I think the world might actually be more peaceful with Trump. I know he's this rhetoric. When he came last time, all the things he said, I think he caused less problems to the world than some of the presidents we have seen. We just want recently, I will not say, but
no holds barred.
I had a game with an American recently.
We are talking about a golf game, right?
Yes, and they are worried. This person is in the defense industries. Their worry is that actually they might not be able to have the market, because they think that Trump will lessen the conflict in the world. And so he's the only person who went to North Korea in the recent times.
What did he achieve?
No, during the time of President...
Is this the famed defense attaché at the
United
States mission in Kampala?
These are contractors and suppliers.
During around that man at some
during Obama's time, North Korea developed the capacity. They tested more missiles, more nukes, and even threatened to nuke Guam, if you remember. it is until this man, when they started talking, things calmed down. So we want some stability, and I think that
No, he's only born in
I'm optimistic that this rhetoric will not turn into reality.
Great.
And when someone gets sworn in, then the table becomes the reality
but
hits.
Trump in the his last time,
Thank you,
he
Honorable
came
Kazesh.
with a threat of a nuclear war, and he said he's going to sink North Korea.
Did it happen?
In 2 days?
Did it happen? Didn't he go to North Korea and they met?
So they are not limited to others, even him.
Let's turn over to Honorable Lydia before we come down to Katuntu to just share with us what top mind your feel is around a Trump presidency coming in for a second time.
In my humble opinion, 4 years is a very short time, and the American presidency, they may have their own ideology, either they are Democrats or Republican, but does not change much from what America stands for in the whole. So I think that our small country should really focus on our business and live on, because 4 years of Trump will come and go, and I do not think that his influence or whatever he does in the White House will have a big impact on a small country like Uganda, leave alone the East African community. You may want to know that our relationship with those big countries like America is maybe through the African Union, and we are getting a new leadership very soon. We have somebody in the House that speaks for us in the Pan-African Parliament. He might have an idea of what's happening with the new leadership coming up in Addis. So that's where actually would want to know how African Union is preparing to relate with the 4 years of Trump than just Uganda. Although we have bilaterals, they may not mean much. That's what I see, and I'm really focused on what we can do as a country, because what is right should be right, whether Trump is in the office or not, and what's wrong is wrong. It's very important for Uganda to really raise to the occasion. And we're talking about rights. We should know what is good for Ugandans. What is right, and what's wrong is wrong. We should not wait for the big boy out there to whip us to do right or to do wrong or to serve our people. That's my humble opinion on this.
Wow, I love the optimism. I love the, well, you would say, a bright outlook to the future. Honorable Katuntu, your thoughts?
First of all, President Trump is not your typical politician. He's actually a businessman. And anybody who tries to analyze Trump and divorces a business-like thinking would be making a big mistake. To him, when he talks about America first, he's not talking about America in terms of influence. He's talking about America's interest. And he has come now to define that America's interest may not necessarily be the same interest, including with America's biggest or historical partners, that is Europe. He's even ready to ask Europe to do what Europe does not believe in, because it is in the interest of America. The issue Katesh is talking about, environment, for example. Europe today believes so much in protection of the environment, the green energy, and so on. Yet Trump believes actually in business and making money. So they are already on the different paths. Two, Trump is going to have a real turbulent relationship with China, and basically because China is Trump's biggest trading partner. So to those, they need have to think twice. To countries like call them the third world countries, you don't have to mind about Trump. He will allow you to do whatever you want to think. He doesn't bloody give a damn about what goes on in Africa and so on. He doesn't. And you see, what even Katesh was talking about, America and Europe you've got two tendencies now. You've got the conservative tendency, which we now define as Republicans in the US, and Trump is part of it. And then you've got the liberals, who are now the Democrats. The liberals have that biggest to me weakness, where they think that they must impose their values on what they think are values. I would call them beliefs on other people. Katesh was just being liberal, or calling it stuff or whatever it is. Take, for example,
Homosexuality.
You could even call it another crude.
Extreme transgender.
No, it is just homosexuality. These are sodomies. And they go ahead even to invest money to spread what some of us think is a vice. And go to the extent of, like, by the way, if you don't believe in this, we shall impose sanctions. I mean, it's just crazy. You'll not have that sort of thinking in the White House today. So, depending on who you are, but Trump, in my view, would be looking more at America, is in what, and is not looking about the influence. What the Biden administration or the Democrats have been thinking all the time, say, America's influence in the world, our influence in the world. They are so much preoccupied by ruling the world, spreading what they think is right. And on some aspects, they could be right on democracy and so on. But even then, they don't imagine that some of these values must, or these beliefs have to grow. They must be homegrown. They become, part of our process. We believe in them. Not that somebody says, "Can you do ABCD?"
How do when you are stunted, people must find the SM milk
The
for you.
proper nutrition.
I would always giving in his very good
Yeah. So to me, Trump. Those who should be worried are those who think they are going to compete with America. If you are, then be on the watch out. Otherwise, if you want to deal with America and you're Africa, what are you going to offer to America? If you are offering nothing, Trump has no business with you.
Well, we have it. Now,
at least we should expect less negative travel advisories against Uganda.
No, but that's also not true, because Trump is also anti-migration.
Yeah.
You get it? So even going to America, I don't think he's going to open up, gates for velos just to walk in his country. No.
Simon.
well, perhaps I thought that as a member of parliament you would speak something to the issue of sanctions, especially considering that your speaker of parliament is, should I say, enjoying sanctions.
No, you just want to bring the name of the speaker, but in the principle we have done. But if you want just to you seem to be preoccupied with some of individuals and so on. Really, we have said that anything we do here which does not affect America's economic interest, Trump has nothing to do it. And therefore, some of these issues that if you're a man and you don't dress like a woman, then you are what? You are sanctioned. That can't arise. You remember Musk and the outgoing Prime Minister of Canada. Yeah, he was asking the Trump administration incoming to to go slow on annexing Canada as the 51st state of the US. And Musk, who is Trump's biggest ally, said, let's not mind about her. To him, the Canadian outgoing Prime Minister is a she.
What? Oh, okay. John Walugembe, I mean, you've listened to what these politicians are going to say, and looking at it from perhaps a political lens, although Honorable Abdul does speak to the fact that in the business sense, we're looking at the Trump presidency from a pecuniary point of view, that for him his interest is America's interest in terms of money, trade and commerce. You as a leader in the SME space in Uganda, and for the most part we have our ambition to say we may as well love to trade with big boys like the USA and the like. Does the Trump presidency seem a ray of hope in as far as expanding our trade and commerce with especially that big market?
Okay, first of all, I'll say that I'll describe Trump's management style as management by confusion. Okay, so it means that over the next 4 years, we are basically going to see people are not really going to know how to deal with him, just like he started. Because through that confusion, he's able to push his interests and the interests of the US. So I think that is something to be expected. And some of the demands that he makes, we want Greenland, we want this and so on. I look at that as positions that are meant to
shake a few tables.
No, to enable him make the kind of deals that he wants to make, because really blackmail, to be honest, and to be able to extract whatever he wants to extract.
America first.
Yeah, the other issues around the family values, I think that has been mentioned. The conservatives, the Republicans are going to tilt back to family values that's firmly aligned with our traditions as Africans. This set of liberal values and new human rights that the liberals create every other day makes it difficult for certain parts of the world. If you look at Asia, Latin America, Africa, these are things that are not consistent with our values. Then the other issue is that he's going to try to prioritize the working class American, because what you've seen with the liberals is the rise of finance and other private sector interests that Biden himself calls now oligarchs. He recognizes at the end that oligarchs have arisen, but during his presidency, it wasn't a big issue. So that's also something we want to see, working class Americans being prioritized. And then we must also look at Trump and compare what he's saying with his record. Because whereas he comes out and says so much about attacking X, attacking Y, in practice, if you look at the wars that he starts and so on, you don't see much mayhem during his presidency. On the other hand, with Joe Biden and the Democrats, you see now the Middle East is in free fall. You see the Gaza, Syria, Lebanon, and so on. So I would say that in spite of the very harsh rhetoric, we might see a less interventionist kind of approach. And then finally, we shouldn't place so many hopes on an individual, because the American military industrial complex pushes its interests regardless of who is in that position. So at the end of the day, we won't see much change. We might see a few things here and there. The noises might change, but the principle, what America wants to achieve, will always be the same.
Tremendous. Now let's get back home. For the longest time, at least in my active public discourses, I received something called the Auditor General's report. This year, the Auditor General's report reveals wastage and mismanagement of public funds. That seems to be what it has always revealed, year after year, decade after decade. Question is, now that it has revealed it today, is there any action that's going to be taken different from the action or the absence of which that has happened over the years? And I'll start with you, Honorable Semujunga. The Auditor General does present this report to the August House, where you have served as a member of Parliament. Now you are getting into the third or fourth term. I mean, we don't even keep a record of some of the things because you've been there almost perennially. How different are we going to handle this report, or is it going to be the same old chorus that is sung and no action?
Covering Abdu as a journalist. Then I went to join him. Now you are saying I have overstayed.
So when I come to describe Abdu's stay in Parliament, the man has been fossiled in Parliament.
Ibrahim, please.
And in one of those meetings, he was encouraging me to join politics.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
And saying you should come and join so that him and his ilk can retire, knowing that they are leaving the seats to capable hands.
They are still mentoring. You see, the Auditor General, by the Constitution, is supposed to be submitting a report to Parliament every end of every end of year by December 31st. And then committees of parliament on accountability that are chaired by opposition will process this report to allow parliament take a decision. One thing I have noted with the parliament is that every finding of the Auditor General also becomes it becomes an area of fresh investigation by Parliament itself. I had issues with colleagues when I chaired the committee on COSASE for 2 years. I'd visited Liberia and Kenya. In Kenya, what they usually do is to debate the report of the Auditor General as a report and adopt it, and then request Parliament to allow them to do investigation in specific areas. In Liberia, they do the same thing. There will be one report on the report of the Auditor General by Parliament, adopted, and then committees may choose which areas, and with authorization of Parliament, at least in those two countries. But when I went to chair the committee, every finding of the Auditor General was fresh investigation by the committee, and that's why the committees in Uganda looked like they were not performing, because they were attempting to do the work of the Auditor General. I haven't read this report. I have looked at some of the highlights. And the broader question you asked, whether the handling is going to be different, certainly it will not. You will go through the routine, Parliament looking at the report, calling witnesses, blah, blah. And then maybe the only thing that changed in Parliament is that, not sure whether it is by June, if these committees haven't completed their own assessment, then Parliament will adopt the report with or without the accountability committees inviting witnesses and writing their reports. Ordinarily from the private sector where I worked before, because even private companies are audited. Auditing is not supposed to be as criminal as sometimes Parliament presents it. Because everywhere I've worked, whether it is at Monitor, Observer, you will do an audit and you even share with URA and all the other statutory agencies. The idea is that you need to look at things that you're not doing right and then correct them. But everybody that committees of Parliament invited became a suspect and is going to be rolled in the mud, even for things that every human being will do when you are running an organization. And that's, if you're a journalist and the public, it causes excitement. You're happy to see big people being rolled in the mud, but sometimes even on issues that Dr. Okure Park chaired the Committee on Public Accounts. I used to cover it. And most of these things he would caution and they do a report. But the subsequent parliaments say, every person appearing
was guilty, and then they have to work back for their innocence.
And they will insult you, they will abuse. One time I told the colleagues when I was chairing a committee that please, let's behave like a court. Listen to every person appearing before us, and then if you want, sentence them to death in your report. But you cannot begin, even before you see it, people are gearing up to attack. So the issue is, the processing is going to be routine, that Parliament will look at it and then will adopt it if committees do their work. If they don't, at least the report will be adopted. But for me, I said I have looked only at the highlights. I haven't, the introduction actually, I haven't read the 732-page report. Of course, it has other accompanying documents. So in total, you need to read more than 5,000 pages to understand what the Auditor General has done.
The long and short of the report is that, as I said earlier on in the introduction, it reveals mismanagement and wastage of public resources.
Yes.
Which has been a theme for that report perennially for the last decades. Question is, do we just remain moving around in circles and no action, tangible action?
But every report has, for me, even if it is for a private company, the content more or less is going to be the same, because they are looking at the same, the themes remain the same. This, you didn't do this. But if you allow me, Simon, The areas that interest me is the investment that government has been making in private companies. They, pharmaceutical, this one of Magora. The Auditor General says that so far we have invested 723 billion in that company, and he says things that we raised when government came to Parliament, that no valuation was done to determine how much share government should do, how much government should pay per share, and how many shares the 723 billion will buy. We asked government, in fact, Parliament had said before you release the money, because we had almost a standoff. The NRM MPs, majority of the Kateshis, we are saying, no, let's just give them because Museveni has said so. And for us, we say, no, we cannot.
That's not true.
So eventually what Parliament resolved was that, okay, we have agreed you can invest there, but don't disburse the money until you have done evaluation and to establish the worthiness of the company. But government went ahead. For them, as soon as the Parliament, so they went ahead to pay the 578 billion. But the Auditor General says, even as he reported to Parliament last month, which is last year, there is no report on the value of that company in which public resources, 723 billion, has been invested. Nobody knows the worthiness of that company. And then
if it exists beyond just paperwork.
He also speaks about Rocco. We paid 207 billion to acquire shares in Rocco.
At least that would help them complete your new chambers.
I am not sure,
where
because
you put a brick a month.
Yes, no, I don't know.
Half a brick a month.
Because and that level of delivery, if you read the other reports of the Auditor General, the performance of projects under this government of Kateshi and the Honorable Lydia, the performance, almost every project is behind schedule. They will start
and delivers worse than
they borrow money. That's the report of the Auditor General. He was even looking at borrowing money. The Ginger Expressway, which is supposed to decongest Ginger, one of the busiest road in Uganda. We asked African Development Bank to finance us. They said, okay, we are ready, the money is here. We don't have money to compensate people in Kasokoso for the road to start. But annually, we are paying 440 billion in commitment fees on money we have borrowed and are not utilizing. So the Auditor General reported about that in the last report. So this Rocco, people meet the president, and I am told that when they are fighting in Iruero, the owner of Rocco, who is now dead, was very helpful. So his company must be helped. I had thought, we argued against giving Rocco 207 billion. We said, but we've given them business. Let us pay them. That parliamentary building is going to cost more than 170 billion. So at least pay them. It can even be upfront instead of giving them free money. But even after 207 billion investment, all the projects, that parliamentary project started in the last parliament. This one is about to end. They are not halfway. So, and then finally, the Auditor General also
says they put half a brick.
The Auditor General also reports about PDM, and he says something that is very interesting, that the National Household Registration Report, those who are compiling it are at 79%. The population registration is at 46%. And he said these two should have been the base upon which this program is implemented. He said, actually, it's going to be very difficult. So you are registering people. The claim is that 39% of the population is not in the money economy. Of late, the president said, actually, many now are. So we have achieved. but the preparatory work is still ongoing.
That's
For
what
you
they
to
call
determine,
putting the horse
for you to determine
after the
who
cat.
is not in the money economy, and to determine who the beneficiary should be. But also interesting, the Auditor General says 2,985 circles, they don't have offices, so you cannot trace them. And he said 567 circles, the offices that they registered don't exist. Yes, but already money has been given to them, and the NRM as usual are reporting success about companies you cannot trace, but also whose offices are registered but they are not there, but also others that have no offices, so they just receive money and vanish. The emphasis is mine, but that's what the Auditor General reports about. So those are the things that I have picked. As I said, I haven't read the report. I've actually started reading it because you guys said we'll discuss it. I was going to start reading it in preparation for budget processing. But I hope, because many of these things are said, as Simon, you noted, issues of public debt, they are in each and every report of the Auditor General. When he says, you guys, you no longer have capacity to repay a loan, don't continue, government will bring the report, table it in the parliament, and 2 days later a request to borrow. It's as if they did not read the report. So
and that's exactly why I'm going to happen when I'm asking that particular question to this other side of the conversation where Honorable Katesh and Lydia are, to say we have this this annual ritual of the Auditor General's report. Thing is, it must inform decision.
Yes.
Or at least inform action.
Yes.
Why do you treat this report with worse than contempt?
Simon and colleagues, I want to agree with Honorable Semuju's point about the processes post the issuance of this report. The Auditor General, while constitutionally reports to Parliament, he is part of government. My expectation is that when he has done his report, government should be able to own it up, because there are things that do not need now for us as Parliament to go back and start hearings, etc. I have read the report. For example, there are issues that are at a macro level which government should be able to pick up and sort. In the report, for example, it talks about the budget of the financial year 23-24, the 61.67 trillion, out of which 50.172 trillion was warranted, resulting in an unfunded budget of 11.5 trillion. That is about 18.646% underperformance. I mean, that is an issue that the Ministry of Finance should be able to pick. But even when you look at the...
Should be able to pick, you mean doesn't, no?
Well, the Auditor General is actually reminding them. Even when you look at the amount that was warranted, the 48.6 trillion spent out of the warrants issued, they left out 1.4 trillion unutilized warrants. What does that mean? It means that, we have very, very poor cash flow projections as government, and we have so many activities that are not implemented. So it talks about the whole issue of budget performance. And that is something that the executive and as budget committee, I sit with Semuju here, we've been talking about. Why do you have a budget? You even issue warrants, then you cannot utilize them. That's one. Number two, I also picked out some issues to do with the budget. 38 local governments received supplementary funding of 234 billion. In total. Out of which 131 billion was not requested for. No. That was not requested for by the accounting officers. So the question is, who is requesting on behalf of these local government accounting
They
officers?
just allocate.
No,
You
who
who
is
is-
the money?
Who is
Not
just
request.
authorizing you to allocate?
Or they
But-
receive money without asking for it.
Exactly. And even out of the 38, the 26 local government did not utilize all the supplementary funds received. So we are talking about issues of budgeting. You have sent money in local government and they have not utilized it. We have also seen in the report the widening fiscal deficit between expenditure and, of course, the revenue. It's been widening. It is an issue where finance has been talking about fiscal consolidation measures. So want to see more about fiscal consolidation. What are they doing? Now we're in the budgeting process, and I think these are questions we will be asking as a budget committee. And this is where we have been saying, parliamentarians, we need to read, but also analyze, because we are going into budget discussions with Semuju here. But when the ministry comes, they should be able to give answers, especially about some of these issues what we are talking about.
Katesh, and that's where my question comes in.
Yes.
What you are doing here
Yes.
is presenting a litany of lamentations. And yet from you, we expect action or decision.
Exactly.
What gives? Why don't you actually rein in?
Look,
As recommended by
the
this
last
board.
2 years, as a budget committee, we've been tackling the issue of commitment fees, high commitment fees, and the Auditor General has talked about it. Where you have undisbursed loans, you got approvals, and then you are not utilizing the funds. But let me pick another issue, which is access to electricity. The Auditor General talked about it. The country's generation capacity in 2023-24, 2,005 megawatts. As at August last year, the peak demand was 1,025 megawatts, leaving a surplus of about 979 megawatts. So what does this mean? In reality, it means the problems of you have a lot of capacity, you cannot transmit it. So we want to see in the budget, what is government planning about evacuating this power that we have produced? Because my colleagues here know the amount of money we have spent in dimmed energy over the years because of not utilizing the capacity we have generated. So issues of infrastructure limitations, these are not things now that should go to these committees of Semuju and then you start recycling. We should be able to change the way we adopt these reports, debate it, and then pick out recommendations for government to implement without having to go back to another drama of media, green accounting officers. But finally, if there are issues of criminality, I think also government has the agencies that are responsible. If someone has inflated the payroll and you have been paying ghosts, why does it need to come to Parliament? Government should be able to pick it up. The responsible agencies take it up. So in short,
let me understand, Honorable Katesh. You know, when you say government, then Parliament, the last I checked, Parliament is government, because government are three arms:
Parliament
the
does not
executive,
arrest.
the
No,
judiciary,
we
and
can-
the legislature.
we have
See,
no
Simon,
powers.
Simon, if you, Katesh, you can
Because
allow.
I hear a member of government.
There are people
lamenting
like,
about government.
like Simon who wants Parliament to do work that is not theirs. One time a committee of Parliament went to Rueda. They arrested businessmen and brought them to Parliament. They have no prison. So they are stuck with them in a bus. And I asked them, why did you arrest them? Are you police? You need to get the other agency of government to act, because you stop somewhere. But when you go into implementation, then you have problems.
So
You are crossing the road.
you should do, Simon, you should do understand where does Parliament start and stop. For me, I think the key should be that we now put government task to issue a treasury memoranda on some of these recommendations. And we can even make it conditional to some of the budget approvals or appropriation we make. If a local government has been misutilizing funds, why should we appropriate more money to a ministry that has accountability issues? So there is room for Parliament, but we also know, my colleagues here know that more than 50% of the recommendations of government are not implemented by the executive. So sometimes the public wants to hang Parliament, but I think that...
Who else would we hang? Because Parliament is a grouping of our representatives in government. So
does Parliament have institutions of arresting and detention?
we hope that next time you are seeking our mandate to become member of Parliament, you are honest with what you are able to deliver to us and what you are unable. Because when you are here asking for votes, you tell us how you are camaraderie with us. You sort out everything. Now, when the rubber hits the road, you start telling us, this government, this...
Simon Simon was on my cabinet in entire school when I was his deputy head boy. He was a timekeeper. A very young boy then. Simon, we have to continue educating our people to understand what the role of Parliament is.
We're at the top of the hour. It's exactly 11 a.m. and 1 or 2 minutes after that. Let's take a short break, members, and we shall return with more of an in-depth discussion on this subject and another very interesting one that is going to certainly be a very interesting conversation that may, for some of the people in this studio, lead to them being hanged or their heads chopped off. No pun intended. Welcome back. It's the Capital Gang with the usual members of the gang. Coffee in the studio is served by Star Cafe, and clearly the energy is up right there. So before we just get into the conversation, we want to tell you that Hello Uganda joined Gold Cash Uganda Limited on Thursday, January 23rd, 2025 for an exclusive event themed Unlocking Global Markets as we open doors to global investments. Discover insights on the Nasdaq 100 ETF on the Uganda and Nairobi Security Exchanges with expert inputs from the industry leaders and partners like Nasdaq, TrustEdge, Kampala Associate Advocates, Standard Chartered Bank, Standard Investment Bank, and JTC. Follow the action on Afro Mobile and X for a journey into the world of global investments. Gold Cash Uganda, Unlocking Global Markets. Well, let's turn to you, John Walugembe, a member of the business community in Uganda, but very specifically a leader in the space of small and medium enterprises who toil day and night, pay your taxes, and operate in an environment where you expect that when all is said and done, government is able to give back to you the services and an enabling environment for you to continue trading and become bigger. When you look at the Auditor General's report and the wastage therein, considering that actually that wastage is on the shoulders of your very hard-earned taxes, but also crudely collected from you, sometimes even unfairly. What gives? How do you feel?
Okay, so
Feels bad.
in corporate governance, every year a company is required to prepare audited accounts. It's also required to prepare an annual report. Now, Uganda's annual report is the State of the Nation address. It tends not to be comprehensive, but thankfully our audited accounts tend to be fairly, to have some meat. When you're looking at audited accounts, the first point of call is normally what we call a balance sheet, your assets vis-a-vis your liabilities. You may have more debts than the assets that you have. So as a country, the Auditor General found that our assets are around 107 trillion, but is not sure because the valuation committees that were valued these assets were not competent. So it is possible that actual assets are like 50 trillion.
Or perhaps even more.
Okay. Yes. We tend to. So they could be less. Oh, they could be more. That's true. But now our liabilities are around 100 trillion as well. So it means we are just there. At any point, if our liabilities exceed our assets, then as a country will be in a very dangerous situation. Then we are not collecting the money that we should collect from those people who should pay us. He found that about 0.9 trillion of receivables, money that we should be collecting from different entities, we've not been collecting, so he wrote off some of that. And then we are also not paying money. Government is not paying. In fact, if you look at the payables, these have grown. So it means that Our domestic carriers have gone from 10 trillion to 13 trillion. So these are businesses now that are lending to government, because when government doesn't pay you, it's pretty much an interest-free loan.
Absolutely.
For government. And of course,
which also means that you who has given a service to government and you're not paid, most likely you will be kicked out of business and go under.
Exactly. Then what you also see is the issue of ROCO that Honorable has mentioned, about 207 billion, the issue of biopharma of about 723 billion. So the Auditor General recommends that we should have guidelines for bailouts and investment. And I think this is what we have also been arguing. If government wants to support local businesses, let us create guidelines and an agency. If Walugembe Limited feels that he needs bailout from government, then there should be guidelines to approach this entity and say, please assist us to get this kind of support. And then the issue of PDM. PDM is critical because government has said this is going to be the transformative model to ensure that this economy grows. These 567 circles, Honorable Sem, they don't exist actually. So that they don't have offices. They completely don't exist.
Yeah?
Yes. The 2,985 don't have offices, but these 500 are ghost circles. So I think this is something that, and then because the idea was that PDM needs to be streamlined through the use of OND, this application that was developed by Postbank and the telecoms. But the different government banks are also not using the OND platform. And then we have also issues with procurement. So for me, my request this year is that every year this report comes out, the parliamentarians and Honorable talked about it, they go before the cameras, they squeeze the leaders and so on, they take some shots, and after 2-3 months, this is overtaken by some other piece of news. I think our request this time is that we can identify 1 or 2 or 3 action points. And that's why sometimes I say, maybe we need a national implementation authority. Because we seem not to be implementing. we seem
then what will government be doing?
Yeah, because
Mr. Walugeme will be the executive director.
If I'm earning 60 million per month, I can kindly consider. So anyway, I think that we should say, out of this audit, we can maybe implement 1 or 2 or 3 recommendations instead of rolling over, because the same PDM issues came out in the
last report. Yes.
Audit. Same procurement queries came out in the last audit. The issue of domestic carriers came out. What is changing are the figures, but the issues themselves are the same.
That's why I was saying it's a perennial ritual
to ensure that we solve this issue. I think.
Well, you've heard him, Abdul. Doesn't it tire you? And let me just happen from what Mr. Walugeme just concluded with. Doesn't it tire you that you receive and consider almost a similar report every single year, decade after decade, from the Auditor General? The only thing that keeps changing are the figures indeed that he has said. And yet, a little, if any, action remains, and yet we, as the populace, are counting on you as our representatives in government to at least lead some action to ensure that there is no hemorrhage of what should be resources that could otherwise come in to provide us services in our healthcare, in infrastructure development, education, and the like.
Management of society is always work in progress, and any society does not have shortage of bad boys and girls. They'll always be there. And there would be no magic solution to it to end it. So, but let me go back to the specifics. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Auditor General. They have done a pretty good job over years, because quite a professional job. I got so much interested during the time of Auditor General Mwanga, who was there for quite a long time, and now the new one. They seem to be really up to the task. We can't fault them. They could have a little bit of weakness here and there like any other institution, but they've done a pretty good job. One, do they raise anything new? No. Absolutely none. Absolutely none. These are the usual things. But as Ibrahim here says, the process of auditing is to help improve the system. Then Parliament should be able to make a recommendation to the different government entities that have faced challenges in that report, such that those departments or MDGs don't make the same mistakes. Unfortunately, and this depends, Ibrahim, this depends on the chair of a committee. There are those, like Mr. Orgembe says, who want to act for the camera. There are many. And, they sensationalize even what is not supposed to be. And then these days of social media, everybody is a journalist. They throw and then they debate and people are happy and you become a hero. And when some of us look, I say, where is this hero? Nothing. But he's all over the place. So once you have leaders who don't appreciate the essence of the process, you have those problems. And that we have to take the blame. When I was chair of COSASE, what did I do? Ibrahim, you remember, in our report, we said that during our process, we invited both the IGG and the director of CID to attach officers to our committee, such that they are able to follow our process and act in time. They don't even have to wait for the committee report. We proposed to Parliament, and Parliament adopted it, and we sent that copy of the report to both the IGG and the director CID, such that what you are, what you are talking about, MPs going to go and arrest. I mean, it doesn't make sense. But some of them do. Oh, we arrest that one. And you are like, oh, excuse me, what is this? And if you say, no, we should do things different, and then you have been bought.
You're compromised.
You've been compromised. And yet you should know your work. And some of us, there's no you can deviate from what you're supposed to be doing. So Parliament invited the IGG and the CID to be part of this process from the beginning. If they sense any criminality, they don't have to wait for anybody's permission.
They swing.
They swing and follow it up because that is their job. Have they done it? Absolutely not. Nothing. So where do you blame Parliament? Then too, the Parliament process is audit by public because, one, there are things the Auditor General cannot do. And Ibrahim knows this. You see, when you start an audit process, the Auditor General's office can only interrogate officers of government. And let me give you an example. If they say Katesh petrol station supplied fuel, and there is a query about that, the Auditor General cannot go to Katesh petrol station. He doesn't have that authority. Parliament has that authority, the parliamentary committee, to call Katesh and say, Katesh, did you actually supply this, and give us the evidence? So this process is supposed to enrich where the Auditor General has not. Unfortunately, we sometimes don't do what we are supposed to be doing. But what is the essence of Parliament? Because this is your money. This money for the people, and the representative of the people are asking critical questions. How have you utilized our money? So we cannot behave like we are civil servants. For us, we are the people. Actually, we are the public. And now we're asking these officers who are in charge of our resources, how are you doing it? That's why we do it publicly. And sometimes we make those sort of mistakes. Specifically, when you go to the report, utilization of supplementary budget by the local government. Where is the problem? This thing has been on over years. Why? Sometimes they release money 3-4 weeks to the end of the financial year. And you say, is this man in finance really in his right senses? Is releasing money knowing the procurement process of government takes long, and he knows that money is not going to be what? Utilized. But he has released it 3-4 weeks to the end of the financial year, meaning it is either for accountability purposes, because he knows this money is not going to be utilized, but he has sent it there. Then after, at the end of June, the money is returned. So in most cases, most of these funds are released late. And when you read the parliamentary reports, they have been pointing out this year after year. Guidelines and law on, for example, on bailout. When I was chairing the Kasase committee, I'm sure this became public knowledge because we did it publicly. We investigated the so-called presidential handshake, which had no basis in law. So we went to the president, sought permission, because then who gave out this money. We sought his audience, and he gave us the audience. So we met to say, sir, what is this? And the president asked us, but yes, do I have authority as a president to do a donation? We said yes, but it should be within your budget. Then he said, you mean it wasn't in my budget? He asked us. We said, but you know, then he said, Nani, you call so and so. Said, you people, these people asking me this, you answer. Was this money not in the budget? Said, sir, when you make a donation, we are supposed to provide for it. Then why did the Uganda Revenue Authority use money which had been budgeted, allocated for some other purpose, and they used it to pay themselves? And the president said, but did that happen? Said, yes, that's why we're here. So later on we had that debate, and actually the president was asking them. Then because he was a little bit annoyed with us, say, you people, why are you doing this? Then when we explained, he said, okay, then that was a mistake. And it is you people who are my financiers. You should have provided for that money within the budget. URA did not have authority to touch money which had been budgeted for some other purpose. Then we suggested to him that even this donation, I think because of these problems, can't we have a law in place? Said, I don't have any problem. So he instructed his then Attorney General. He said, can you work with the Attorney General and you put a law in place? Because our view was that the president should make a donation on only money which we have allocated. So that every financial year we say we have given the president this much, 60 billion this financial year to do his donations. Then the president should be able to say, well, I've already donated in April, I've donated 50 billion. I can only donate another 10 billion because it will be within the law. And those are the guidelines I think he's talking about. Up to now, we don't have those guidelines. This thing about money going without law and guidelines is the one which causes some of these challenges. So until you have a law in place and guidelines in place, first of all, you insulate the presidency.
Is it the absence of laws in this country that makes us inept to deliver on anything, or it's just simply the lack of implementation of what the law says?
Among other things. You are right, and I'm also right. Among other things. One, in some areas we don't have specific laws and guidelines. For example, what we are calling affirmative actions, and these are not donations, but they are, what is the economic word? Katesh, where we say, okay, we give you some money.
Grant.
No, it's not even a grant. It's not even a grant.
But a bailout?
Or bailout.
Yeah.
It's a bailout. Where is the law? And where is the policy? It's not there. For example, you can't come to Parliament and say, can we give Rocco 200 billion? 207 billion. No guidance, no nothing. Then it's okay, Rocco, we'll give you. Then we say, where is it? Dairy pharmacy, pharmaceuticals, 700 billion. And where is our equity? Because that is what That's what I think the Auditor General is questioning.
Yeah.
Where is our equity?
Correct.
And how did you arrive at that
700?
At 700? Because that is our interest. That is our interest. We don't have guidelines. We don't have laws. And sometimes these are the issues that we should be discussing. Unfortunately, we don't. Unfortunately, we don't. And as long as everybody now must run to Plot 1 Uganda to look for money, then Plot 1 Uganda becomes the subject of talk.
Becomes a clearing and forwarding outfit.
House, which I think should not be. Because if we had guidelines, we had policy, we had law, then everybody would know, if I need a bailout, what do I have to do?
And this is
this is the criteria. This Katesh investment qualifies for a bailout because in economics, they call it too big to fail.
To fail. Yeah.
Because during the economic crisis in Europe and the US, in the US they had the problem of the automobile company.
Yes.
In terms of the people who are employed General Motors. So government puts in money because this company is too big to fail. Should it fail, then it will have an effect on the economy. That should be the overriding consideration before you even talk about a bailout. It's not that Katesh comes or Katuntu comes from a good village, Karokarungi, so we should give him a bailout. It doesn't make sense that
come from Idudi.
If I could also just give you, I think the wider problem is about the public investments. When you look at where government has invested, whether it is companies or state corporations, we have been talking about this year in, year out. The issue of valuation, the issue of even computing return on investment. I was asking the colleagues here the other day, I said, when I look at the budget every year, the revenue source, it has a column for domestic revenue, external financing. The third column has always been empty. And the third column is return on investment, where we have invested. And there are so many corporations and private companies. And that is something that we should be.
And that now
because there is no return on investment. Yeah, so what do you want to put anything there?
No, but because there is
and that's why I wanted to bring in Lydia to ask her.
Nothing for public offers. There is no return coming in, but we have put there.
Exactly.
And it's returning, maybe it's returning someone's.
And the PFM
and that goes
wherever it is returned to, at least it's not being captured.
So, because you see, wherever government has got equity,
yes,
there should be a return on investment. Because we have invested money there.
Even
that's what it means. It doesn't matter.
You report.
You report, because that's what auditing is all about. So once we have invested, and whether it is Rocco, for example, first of all, was it right for us to invest in Rocco in the first place?
And not Akaduka and all the other deserving businesses.
You're supposed to do a business case.
Yes.
That shows you invest this much. It has the valuation. It shows it's the company. If we invest, this will be the return. And then an investment committee would make that decision. You would invest. And then you'd know maybe they have a grace period of 5 to 10 years. And then after that, they start paying. Even
to talk about that, what we are investing there is preferential shares.
Yes.
Meaning you have nothing to do with management. So there are things we do, and that money went and the whole of Parliament was crying. I don't remember, Katesh, if you were there, how we passed that particular. It was very unfortunate.
So, gentlemen, you'll allow me bring in Lydia here and try to put her off this tangent of saying, okay, as it stands, doesn't this situation that all of us are decrying, and we seem to be unanimous even across the political divide,
it's economics,
doesn't it speak to the fact that, in fact, the NRM government is grossly, I don't use the word incompetent, but is failing to deliver on its promise? Lydia, when you sit in those top organ meetings of the NRM with a situation like we are discussing now, where Auditor General's reports indicate a malaise and a very deep mismanagement of public resources, and yet we remain in a situation where we're unable to offer services as a government to people because of lack of financing, doesn't it bother you to the extent that you should actually be introspecting and saying we have failed our people?
Mr. Edward Akol, I think this was his first maiden report to Parliament as the new Auditor General, but he's an old staff of the institution, so he has institutional memory. The biggest challenge of that office has been capacity. Maybe he can bring in new energies and ideas on how best, first of all, they can broaden that report. That report does not capture the whole picture of the financial year expendables. I think they sample. They sample institutions because
you cannot have what we call a
because they lack capacity, but also they don't do forensic, which is more detailed and more widespread. So we just get a sample of the country's picture on maybe what I would call accountability, or how we spent resources of the country in a particular period of the financial year. People are talking about the small that he has seen is wastage. So you can imagine if he had broadened the whole catchment area, people would be maybe screaming. And that says that actually maybe we have a very beautiful country. If we put the resources to what's meant to be, Uganda would really have taken off like an electric lift. Because when you look at the wastage and then you see we are still surviving, then you wonder if we had put all that is wasted to proper use. I mean, the roads would be up, we'll be having every village with proper piped water, would be having the ratio of a doctor to people, a better ratio than it is now because of service delivery. The main things of any country is health, education, road infrastructure, and sanitation and water. If we can fix those ones, any Ugandan would survive. But we've been grappling with these challenges because our budget envelope, like Katesh was saying, does not balance to the needs of the country in terms of the basic service delivery measures. And when you look at the wastage, then you wonder, now who is to fix the wastage? Every time you point at me, you then you'll be telling me the stories of I sit somewhere up there. Yes, we sit and direct and say we need to have this direction towards social household poverty. Please do this. We list the roads that should be fixed. We list the areas of water. We even draw standards of the ratio of teacher to pupil. We roll out a good policy like free universal education and for both primary and secondary. But look, that's how far we can go at the level where I sit. Everybody, it's like is it a relay? You pass the baton. You pass the baton. So we say Uganda deserves this, we pass the baton. The baton goes to the executive, they pass the baton to Parliament, they pass the baton to the local government, they pass the baton to the institutions that are supposed to draw revenue, they pass the baton to people who are supposed to enforce, and then we batch the budget.
And finally,
so at the end of the day, the leakages
are
about
the population.
So everybody passes the baton. So if you look at the way I sit, where I sit is really we fixed what Uganda needs. We've talked about education, we've talked about road infrastructure, we've talked about water and what needs to be done. Now, when we pass the baton, we do not want to say we have thrown away responsibility. We want to track and say, guys, how is it on your side? We cannot do everybody's job. So if everybody can do their job, then we'll be home and dry, we'll deliver for Uganda. The question is, who is not doing their job? List the institutions in the Uganda that are supposed to check issues of tracking public expenditure. Isn't it a mouthful?
Absolutely. Even those are
we have so many institutions
with corruption and
that are supposed to make sure that the money does the right thing it is intended to. But are they working? Are they on the sleeping on the job? Are they overwhelmed? Are the guys who are eating the money too sharp for them? Because also we know that there are specific accountability officers in the country. Simon, me and you may never touch money, by the way.
Please, can you?
But there are those who are every financial year. Parliament every financial year approves a signed list of the people they call accounting officers. So not every Ugandan touches public purse. So why don't we zoom our eyes on where the money, who signs the money, where is it wired? There's even what they call haste. Where is the money wired? How does it go? Does it deliver the services? Even for procurement, there are institutions that are supposed to have a strong eye and approve procurement for public expenditure. I am not in that office, but are they doing their work?
Well, on that note, let's take a short break.
Let's put where our hearts are and let's be able to refocus. But I think Edward Akol can help the country refresh. He needs support. If it is IT, improve the technology to track expenditure, or even human resource. But because this is a new face, a new energy, and I think his report has been able to even broaden what is being wasted, and he should be helped. Because if he brings a report twice and it's not acted upon, he will lose morale. He will say, why am I wasting my time? But if there's action post his report, there will be some energy out there.
Talking about energy, let's take a short break. When we return, we will now be concluding our conversation on the program. And yes, we may take a tangent off to see what's happening in the area of communication from a new age. And, why am I even speaking in tongues? Let's be back. Very good morning once again. Welcome to the Capital Gang as we go into our last 20 minutes of the program. Glad to have the gangsters in the studio in no particular order. We have Semuju Ibrahim Ngana, Member of Parliament for Kira Municipality, Abdul Katuntu, Honorable Member of Parliament from Bugweri, and we also have Honorable Kate Shumbwa Dixon, who is, just stepped out of the studio but is coming in back, and Lydia Wanyoto Mutende, who is a member of the top governing body of the National Resistance Movement, and our very good friend, Mr. Walugembe from the private sector, specifically leading small and medium enterprises, and very soon to become the leader of the big enterprises when he grows, because it's a natural progression. Folks, two major events in the week that we are closing rocked, and I will go in no particular order, but I think each one of you will have to just weigh in on these two events. One, we had a gruesome killing of about 6 fellows in the precincts of this area where we are seated in Kamwatch. Initial reports from the police said these were thugs that intended, or perhaps were about to execute a heist on a local commercial bank that is housed within a mall in this area. Gunned down, and that now seems to be lives lost and no further explanation. What do we think of some people who have described them as extrajudicial killings? But in the same latitude, we also have our Chief of Defense Forces, who last week, the world celebrated his exit from a social media platform X, where he was famed for posting conversations, or at least we'll say rabble rousing. In less than a week, the thing is, I am back. And in less than 12 hours, went off again. But in that short time that he was back on the air, some folks are going to be hanged. Others, they are
buffoons, clowns.
Now, and of course, now you as members of parliament, you have been described in no uncertain terms as clowns, as idiots. I'm sorry, but I'm just using the words that were posted in there. And there was a clear message to you that he will never appear before folks like you because you do not merit a second before him. What is your take on those two events? And I'll start with you, Honorable Dixon Kate Shumba. One, do you subscribe to the idea that you were described as you were described on an X platform? And if not, what about the extrajudicial killings that did take place in the precincts of this area? 3 minutes.
First of all, I think for me, if if you are not a clown, why would you be bothered to be called a clown? I don't think I'm a clown, and so I do not feel that way. So that is all I can say.
To use the words of Shakespeare,
Now,
as he said, a rose
now,
by any other name would still smell as sweet.
Yeah, because
But Eshuma, you can only say that.
so I
Because
think I'm
beyond
the
that
one
you
on the
will be in trouble.
microphone. I'm the one on the mic.
Every
If
member
you
of
feel,
parliament will have their
if you feel that you have been described properly like that, then you have a reason to be annoyed, and you can even come on air and lament. But I don't feel well, and I don't think I will be. That's a different issue. On the issue of extrajudicial killings, I think I saw the Minister of Internal Affairs, the General Tafire, coming out very clear on this matter, that the police has got standing orders and instructions from himself and the president. They are not supposed to shoot someone who is
unarmed
and who is not posing any danger. And that matter is under investigation. I know for the fact that this particular area, sometime last year in June, is someone who was, some gentleman was knocked by borders. He was driving in the afternoon, and they tried to say, okay, let's go to a petrol station at City Tires there and try to sort ourselves. And the guy immediately reached about 6 borders were surrounding him, and someone hit him on the head. He was in coma in Mrago for some time. So for me, the issue of crime, especially around certain places, is a very big concern. And police is expected to keep law and order, to protect property. The problem is what happened is that these guys could have been arrested and they could have given more information. Perhaps then you would know that there is a bigger network. So the motivation to shoot as opposed to arrest and then you interrogate and maybe be able to widen the network, I think it still puzzles me. I think they will. The minister has promised that he will update Parliament about what happened from the investigations. But for me, the issue of criminality, I care about the impact on the economy. If you have a place like this, which is a very, very high active place with a lot of business people, tourists, if criminality is happening around a place like this, then it has a tendency to discourage, even visitors, even tourists. So security needs to do more.
Every single day there are shootings in America, but all of us are always lining up and begging to get American visas.
Yeah, we are not America because, I'm in tourism. I know that we are not America. We have to make sure that we have our act in order to have this country safe for everyone who is coming to bring in money as an investor or as a tourist. That is very, very important. Yeah. And so police should be able to explain why wouldn't you arrest the person and then interrogate and have an opportunity to widen the network as opposed to actually
silencing them off and leaving the problem unsolved. I'll turn to you, Honorable Abdul Katuntu, as we conclude the program in 2 minutes. One, do you feel clownish? Or are you also unbothered by what someone initially said their posts on X are actually musings and shouldn't be taken for the seriousness that many of us attach to them?
Well, if you have been following the the communication on Twitter or X by General Muhoozi, then you will not be surprised. He has said that to many people. What is surprising is that it is now he comes off and on, and when he goes off, everybody thinks maybe he has realized that this is not the way to act when you're a CDF or you're a president's son. Then all of a sudden you come back and you do exactly what you have been doing, but this time worse. And
Because now
then
you're saying someone is going to be beheaded, not on Heroes Day, which is in June, but on 9th May, which is Europe Day.
he say, okay, let me even bring it. Then he say, if you don't salute me like this, I'll do this. If you don't, this one is like this. Really, this is the first time in the history of this country that we have that office communicating
to that extent.
communicating that way. And I don't know, because if we have accepted it as the institution, then tomorrow if General Kateshumbwa is given that responsibility, will he act the same way? And if he acts differently, won't people say, why didn't the other one act like this? Or is it because he's somebody's son? And I said this last week, that General Muhoozi should realize two things. One, that he's a son of the president.
You think he doesn't know?
I said he should realize. I know he knows. And that whatever he does is visited on the presidency. Or it's like, okay, he's doing that because he's son of the president. Then two, the institution itself, because there are many officers, men, disciplined, because it's called a disciplined force. How do his officers see his action and his communication? Is it that one which makes them to be proud of their CDF? Or is it them that makes them feel sorry that it is happening? So, but at the end of the day, I think we leave it to the commander-in-chief and the appointing authority and the institution to handle it, because we now seem to be used to it as a country. It has happened. As when he says that he will never appear before Parliament, yes, he may never, but Parliament, it could have clowns. We could be clowns. It is true, we could be, but it is a national institution. What do you do with it? For example, if you are going to talk about appropriation of the budget of the ministry, you have to appear before those clowns to appropriate the money, because that's the law, that's the constitution. So it puts the entire country, all institutions, in a very, very turbulent times. Because are you setting Parliament as against the army, Parliament as against the office of the CDF, Parliament as against the president, his son, Parliament as against the president? All these sort of questions come in, and I thought this matter had come to an end last time when he decided to go off Twitter. Now he has gone off. We don't know whether he will come back tomorrow. and we'll start from there. Then on the other issue about extrajudicial killings, you see, police is about law and order. Police cannot become an institution which acts unlawfully. Please, Inspector General Police Abbas, please, first of all, from what we've read, looks like these people, there was a lot of intelligence gathering about this particular group, and they had been trailed. So meaning they knew whether these guys were armed or not. And when because they were shot in public, people were seeing, there was no arms recovered from them, nothing. So was it fair on intelligence that to say the guys who are going for the operation, these guys are armed, or they knew they were not armed, but they went ahead and killed them? It's not well. You see, whatever crime a person commits, he should go through a due process of the law. Lastly, you see, the judicial process. The judicial process. You know, what we call, and the judicial process now involves the judiciary. Sometimes it is so slow that some of these people now get frustrated. You see, even if these guys, we arrest them, take them there, after 1 month they will be out, and then we are going to this. So they think maybe we should sort it out. So really,
on site,
it's not correct, but the judicial process should also take note that some of these guys, when they get frustrated, they can also commit crimes. And now they also become actually suspects, which is not correct, because they are supposed to be keeping us safe.
Samuel Ibrahim Uganda,
Yes.
don't we risk diplomatic incidents between this beautiful country and many other stakeholders, especially where a post comes in from the Chief of Defense Forces about not or being saluted by a defense attaché of a military, of a superpower in this country? I mean, what's your take? And let's do this even in a short time than 3 minutes.
Let me start with the shooting. And in a second, one of my counselors in Chireka sent me this message. One of the suspected robber that was shot was an innocent border rider at Nawojo stage in Chalwajara parish. His usual customer, also a resident of Nawojo, came and picked him from stage. On reaching that spot, the passenger got off and requested the border guy to wait for him. In a short period of time, gunmen came and told him to raise up his hands. He did so, and he was shot.
Mm-hmm.
This is from my constituency, one of the victims. What Muhoozi is doing is a build-up. It didn't start yesterday. The way he entered the army, the way he was being promoted, the way he's being appointed, that his inauguration must be presided over by his uncle, who came dressed like he was going to milk cows, Salim Sari. And because he did not want to salute those who hold offices, so he came that way deliberately. And the inauguration of CDF was in Guru. I don't know what Sari is doing there. You hear stories he's distributing money.
How I wish
So,
we could be in the receiving end of
Good
that
is
diamond.
Uganda. You could be-
The wife of the president, who is Minister of Education, she was vetted on Zoom. For 4 years, she has never stepped in Parliament to account. Every year we pass a budget to go to the Minister of Education. When you ask the speaker pretends that she's on Zoom here. And you say, okay, if she's on Zoom, can she answer the questions? So the Museveni family, I think, treats everybody now like we are, I don't know, I don't want to use Trump's words. So the son will continue doing so because that's what they do at home. They look at MPs as crowns. They are running their enterprise. So why are you disturbing them? Maybe that's the conversation that they have between the father and wife and the son. And I was surprised. Kateshumba said, I am not a clown. Deliberately refusing to speak about the most serious issue, that you have a person in a government office who says, I am not coming to Parliament. But why should he come if the mother is not coming? In fact, I'm going to ask that Parliament when it resumes, why are you calling the son? If the mother has never stepped there, even if for vetting, and then you are there pretending. In fact, I am very happy that he has called them clowns. They are clowns, MPs.
Can't you use the word we
You begin.
Why are you saying they are?
No, for me, I've been complaining. So you vet the mother. She has not stepped at Parliament. She is a minister. She has never stepped there. And then you are there pretending the son must come. These are big people from heaven. They can't appear.
Especially before clowns.
Especially before clowns. And the MPs are behaving exactly the way they are being described. So when you speak about Janet, you are taking the first family. Then why do you disturb Muhoozi? You have said they are above everybody, they are in heaven, they are angels. Let them abuse you. And I want, in fact, Muhoozi to remain on Twitter to continue abusing MPs. Because we've reduced ourselves into that. Let me tell you, I have had difficulties before you speak about Janet Kataha. The speaker is up in arms. The MPs are shouting at you. Why are they disturbing Muhoozi? Wow. This family is above everybody. It came from heaven. They are answerable only to God. They have said consistently, you wait, Angel Jibrilu will summon CDF. Because that's where they answer.
Angel?
Jibrilu.
No, it's Gabriel.
No, in Arabic.
In Arabic, it's Jibrilu. So they can only be the ones to summon them. Why are you disturbing their peace?
Lydia, in 1 minute as we conclude the program.
After Semuju, how can I be?
What more can we add?
After Semuju, what do you want me to say? I didn't know that Gabriel is Jibril. Why doesn't Semuju take over the rest of my airtime? Because you are rushing him.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Ibra, you finish with this.
What? I have finished it. So
Now I'll turn to argument.
I can't take your time. You should be the one correcting these mistakes because you are the
I
leader.
was laughing because General MK is now a CDF.
Yes.
The next deployments he has, by the way, the history of Uganda, and I think Katutu can correct me or Semju, they've been there for a long time. Normally, the army members of parliament, a CDF becomes a member of parliament almost automatic. So I don't know how he's going to sit with the
crown.
Because unless he declines being a member of parliament, or even the next deployments really will have to be the legislature.
Can an officer decline deployment?
I don't know whether he's still an army.
Lydia, let's go to our game so we can conclude on
So
time.
I think we are in for some interesting times because when he appears parliament as a member of parliament representing the whatever, maybe you will not. He will be seated on the committee of defense.
Wow. I was saying John.
My sense is that some of this is banter, and we should, find some humor in what he says. I saw that tweet and saying to invite members of parliament when they call for arrest them.
If you're not done,
so there's a bit of
it is humor.
No, I think so. Because if you look at what he mixes in Rihanna and so on and so forth, so I think we should look at what he says vis-a-vis what if he's doing good work in the army. I think some of these things we can afford.
But if they are saying
if he's not taking steps, if he's not taking steps,
will be hanged on.
Yeah, but if he doesn't move to arrest
Simon,
me,
I would also want to tell Dr. Balam that it's not true that women were going to die if MK. That's not fair to the women, but maybe I should leave for those that they've defined as women.
Lydia, you don't have any friend if you don't have one like Balam. Anybody who doesn't have a friend like Balam in their life, clearly.
Who agrees with everything. Okay, and then on the issue of these extrajudicial, I think this is something we need to take seriously. The other day they shot someone at the Sheraton because he didn't move. Some fellow wanted to pass, didn't give way, shot him. Okay. Then there's a lady they shot sometime in Namamve also, traffic incident. Someone came, shot her. Okay. Then someone comes and shoots 3 people and says we anticipate that he intends to commit a crime. What is this exactly? Because if someone has committed a crime, there's a process for holding him to account. Can't anticipate and say John might, So I think this is something we need to rectify. Otherwise, we all won't be safe. Tomorrow, we will have a land disagreement and someone just shoots you and then that's it. So I don't think it's good for any of us actually to allow such a situation.
Before you go off, that issue of near Sheraton is actually bigger than even shooting that person.
Yeah.
There are many people now who think they have got right
of way.
Yeah.
They are chasing everybody, but they have gone now a step ahead to kill.
Yeah.
Somebody who is legitimately on the road
without an option of where else they can
go. And you just get a gun and shoot and kill. We need to address this nonsense of right of way, chasing people from roads. Every Dick, Tom and Kashate are chasing people from the road. Why? Small little fellows get off, but now you pull out a gun and shoot somebody who is trying to earn a living.
Yeah.
A lawful citizen, driving a taxi and so on, and you kill him because you think you have a right of way. That matter must be addressed seriously, and I think I've had colleagues now are trying to address it. Because the public is sick about being chased from the road every day.
It is being done by your bodyguards, these people who wear this black, ugly police uniform that protects you VIPs. Everyone now has become impatient.
Maybe the VIPs are the ones who order their guards to do that.
Absolutely. Well, it's 1 minute to the top of the hour, and I believe that it's only fair that we conclude this program today.
Just Simon, the hanging of Wesigi
Well, Gembe says it is banter.
No, we had actually been told that Mr. Museveni had instructed the court martial to try Besigye quickly, sentence him to death. Of course, what would remain would be for Museveni to sanction. So, in his casual way, this guy speaks about some of the things that are serious. Besigye, he has 2 cases now. If he's convicted, Abdu can correct him on any of them, the punishment is death.
Maximum.
And that court martial, I saw the way they tweeted Kiza, the lawyer. They can sentence you even without a hearing. They just beat him up and then sentenced him. He's now in prison. So maybe Muhoozi, and I want to thank him. Those of us who are SJ people now,
at least you know 9th May.
I hope they will give us his body so we go and bury him. Because they have been told. So maybe on Monday we begin setting up a funeral committee.
Of what now?
Besigye is to be hanged on Heroes Day.
No, they brought it closer to 9th of May,
Yeah.
which, like I say, is Europe Day. Now, it's top of the hour. It's the 18th day of January 2025. It's been a pleasure having you, gentlemen and lady, as a conversation raged on here on the Capital Gang. For you, our listeners, it's been a pleasure having you. Let's meet same time, same place, another opportunity presenting itself. God bless you. And, of course, we want to thank Star Cafe for providing us the coffee in the studio. It's been quite a morning.